What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Check this out. This is the Skyzone Atomrc Dragonfly Hexacopter analog 3-inch with onboard HD. This is the one cam split Nano 3 camera on here. It has a DVR on board for an SD card recording 1080p at 60 frames per second. It has a top mount battery. It also has 30-28 props on here, and I have TBS crossfire. You can also fly this guy with either a LiPo. You can do 1100 milliamp 4S. You can do 850s. You can do as small as a 650 on here, reducing the weight a lot. It also includes a GoPro style mount, which is awesome. It mounts right to the front, and it includes as well the decased GoPro version. So you'll take this mount right here off this one and you'll use it with this one. Either way you go, you've got a lot of options here. So SMO 4K with this guy, or a full-size GoPro. It's big enough and it has enough diameter here, about the same diameter as a 5-inch race quad. So it's kind of crazy. So ultralight, smaller motors, and about a 20-minute flight time on a Li-ion battery. Li-ion or LiPo. Either way you go, you've got a lot of cool stuff packed onto this Hexa rotor. And I keep wanting to call these quads, but it is a Hex. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 motors. An octocopter has 8 motors. So octocopters are typically for big camera rigs when you're carrying a giant DSLR. But nowadays, this is pretty sweet. So you don't even have to have an action camera on this one because it has the Runcam Split Nano 3 on there, just above the F4 flight controller. And we have 1404, 3000 kV motors. And I could go on and on about this quad for a while. There I go again saying quad. Hexacopter. I could go on about this Hexa for a while. It's kind of the bigger brother to that little Firefly that I reviewed last week on the channel. This is the Dragonfly, also with return to home GPS on there and an awesome VTX with the Rush Cherry antenna on the back. So this one comes in at about $239, I believe, $235 on the Banggood website. So you can check that out in the link below. You can also get with an R1 Mini D8 receiver, which I don't recommend. I recommend going for the TBS Crossfire. Get yourself a Tango 2 controller, and that's the way to do that. But this is the analog version. They also have a DJI Caddx Nebula Pro version as well. So for you DJI guys that want to fly a Hex, grab this with some Caddx Nebula on there. That would be super, super fun. So these have great power, and the tune on here is really mild. So when I'm doing flips and rolls with this, it's not really a freestyle machine. It's more of a cinema type machine, and you can do long range flights with it, getting around 20 to 25 minutes, and short flights for freestyle with a 4S 850, and feel a nice power to weight ratio. These are really fast. Hex drones are really fast. They have a lot of surface area and a lot of prop space pushing, but in a very efficient manner as well. So for the price point, I think the analog version with the onboard HD is actually a pretty good deal at $235. So let's go outside now. Let's do a little flying together, guys, and let me show you the Dragonfly, what it's all about. And for whatever reason, I couldn't get my GPS to load that day, but I'm gonna show you the footage anyway. But don't be too scared that I have 0 satellites. So if you see that happen with yours, you will not have return to home. So field test your return to home as always. That's a big thing that I tell people here on the channel. Field test your return to home before you go out 3 or 4 miles with this and have a fail safe and fall to the ground. So make sure that your return to home is working properly and you'll be good to go. So without further ado, guys, let's go outside and fly this Hex. And I'll show you some analog footage from the Runcam Split Nano 3, and I will show you some onboard footage as well, that HD video. There's a little bit of vibes in there. If you put an action camera up top, you'll have beautiful cinema stabilized video. Here we go. Let's go. Okay, my friends, let's go ahead and do the FPV flight test. First, I'm going to show you the Runcam Split Nano 3, and we're going to test this out together flying around the field. We're also going to do some mild freestyle with this Hexa rotor, but I'll tell you right away, I feel like the Runcam Split Nano 3, it's okay. I wouldn't say it's as good as an action camera, but if you don't want the extra weight of an action camera, this will work out fine. And it will power loop, as you can see. So I feel like the rates are definitely dialed back on here to be nice and smooth, because most of the guys that are flying this, they're not really going to be freestyling this type of rig. More likely you're going to be flying smooth long-range flights and cinema type stuff. So that's kind of what this Hexa rotor is all about. So we're just going to kind of fly it how it's meant to be flown here. And as I'm flying it around the field, I do notice that at certain points of the throttle, there are definitely some sort of little bit of jitter and kickback, maybe from the props that I'm using. Also, it was a very windy day. When you have the added wind pushing on the power system, the accelerometer kind of can give you those jitters at times. So, I mean, we had a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind on the day that I was flying this Hexa rotor. So, something to think about there. On a totally calm day, you might have a little different experience with this quad, but TBS Crossfire is great. I'm able to just send it out there in this field and not worry about it fail-safing. And I've flown my TBS Crossfire Nano behind super thick tree canopy like Oregon and Washington type tree canopy and not lost signal. And this is where I'm feeling like I could enjoy cruising this Hexa rotor out miles and miles. It will get out there. I also tested an analog recorded video for you guys that I got 20 minutes on the Li-ion battery, which is kind of crazy. And again, I'm going to show you that analog video, what that camera looks like. Some of you guys have never seen the Split Nano 3. It is a newer one that came out a little while back, and I've been needing to give a full review on the Split Nano 3 because it made a lot of changes here. A lot of the lag and problems that we had on previous versions of Split Nanos has been reduced. So Runcam is constantly working to make their things better for you guys, new versions all the time. But this video is acceptable if you don't want the additional weight and you're just kind of playing around, you know, uploading to Facebook and stuff like that. I feel like it's totally fine. Now right there, I think the blacks are a little bit too dark. And then they kind of adjust as I get over these trees a little bit. But you can see that the darks look really dark. So the black point is very deep on this camera in this HD recording system. This is the onboard DVR. And it's not quite as impressive as something like the Insta360 Beta FPV SMO 4K camera, but you know, again, it's acceptable, but it's not like super high quality. You can see some bugs flying by the screen there. Some flying across this grass. It's so much fun to fly these lately. There's a lot of Hexacopters coming out, and it's really kind of fun. Like, it's different, and they do fly different. They kind of fly more like just a bigger aircraft carrier versus like a smaller quadcopter with the same size motor setup. I mean, this would be a lot smaller profile in the air with 1404 motors and 3-inch props. And it'll be a little bit lighter. But in my testing on some of the most recent quads with Li-ions, I'm getting like 28 minutes. So, I mean, you're getting about an extra 5 minutes flight time with the Rekon 4 that I just tested. If you're looking for a 4-inch under 250 grams, but you can't get under 250 grams with the Li-ion pack on there. So if that's what you're concerned about. Right there up high, I can see some jello there in the church as I'm flying back toward the parking lot. So it's not, I won't say this is perfect, but it is a neat rig. And you can smooth out some of this in post. If you have an editing program, you can use a filter to smooth out those jitters if you want to get ultra smooth video. But what a beautiful day to fly. This is a little bit later in the day, so we've got some shadows there. And here you can see the wind. Look at the wind moving the trees right here. So that may be also contributing to our bit of jitter today. Because just remember, this is a big diameter across for all of this prop circumference here for a hexacopter. So about the same diameter circumference as something like a 5-inch, but you have small 1404 motors all working together to share the load. So it is a fairly efficient quad for how much space you have, how much prop real estate. So now let's put this down and let's go ahead, let's test out the analog camera for you. I just want you to see that. And I also want you to see a power loop. This baby will power loop. You guys already saw the HD version of that, but I wanted to show it to you again. Check that out. And the roll rate, again, it's not quite as snappy as something like some of the quadcopters that I've flown recently. And I also want to just kind of show you guys the reception back to my Skyzone. I believe I was flying the 04Ls that day, the Lycos version. I just reviewed those. They're about $400. They're a competitor to the Flat Shark Attitude V6s, which I think the Skyzone versions are better. They have a better DVR. And from what I'm seeing here, great reception. I've had some quads with a lot of interference lately, and this VTX seems to do good. Unfortunately, I have 0 sats, you guys. 0 satellites in this test for some reason. Either I had it disabled or it wasn't hooked up properly. The Rekon 4 that I just flew last week came set up properly from Hglrc, so that was awesome. I just plugged it in and the GPS just worked. And you can see my compass right there. We're actually pointing closer to the east here. Actually, no, that's almost right. The compass at the top, the heading. Almost right. Mount Hood is off to the left, and that's more of an eastern direction. Very interesting. Mount Hood's not really northeast from where I'm located here. But you can put your latitude and longitude and all the bells and whistles on the screen here for your OSD. It's very configurable. And here I'm flying a LiPo. And on a LiPo, you can probably get about, like a 4S 850 should get you about 8 to 10 minutes flight time if you're just cruising. And if you're a beginner, start out in stability mode. It's a lot of fun. So let's go back in and take a closer look at this hexarotor on the bench. All right, my friends, welcome back from the flight test. Check that out, 191.5 grams on the scale. This is a pretty big drone, so that's pretty awesome that this thing is under 250 grams. Now, if you put something like a 450 on here, you're gonna get a super short flight time, but you can get it under 250 grams. And right there, I mean, 250.8 grams with a 4S 650. So you're just squeaking above 250 grams. If you wanted to lighten this up a little bit, you could probably use a little thinner strap here. This is a full-size 5-inch strap. If you pull that strap off there, I bet you can get this down to around 250. There are ways to shave down the weight just a little bit. So kind of incredible that this little guy can be under 250 grams with an HD system for recording video on board. Now, I wasn't satisfied with the video that this gets with the tune that's on here. I feel like it definitely has some jitters. From time to time, it kind of had this like shift to it. It would just kind of do this shift for a while. And in flying, that was kind of getting on my nerves a little bit. So I'd kind of have to tune this a little better. I wish I had a tune on it for you. I don't currently have one, but if I tune it, I will definitely let you guys have that. I'll share that with you, and I will make that public. But with an action cam, using one of these two mounts that they provide, you guys can get some super nice cinema. It just needs a slight bit of tuning to get this thing to perfect. But that's how it came out of the box. And a lot of times I like to show you guys how stuff flies out of the box, but I'm happy with the gear that they put on here. I love this like sort of long body classic frame design. This top plate has 4 bolts on it. We've got a TPU mount back here for a bendy, flexible Rush Cherry antenna. I wish that they would had put a taller version on here, like a long range version of this antenna. But I think that the video actually did pretty good. So I'm not super disappointed with the Analog VTX on here. It's got a backseat Analog VTX, and that's a 20x20 mount right there. If you wanted to upgrade to DJI later, you can put your Vista right back there. It will fit back there. And the Vista sits on a 20x20 mount. I've got my TBS Crossfire Nano up front, just behind the Runcam Nano 3 there. And you can see all the soldering on here looks pretty good. So it's kind of cool that Skyzone is making quads and airplanes now, along with goggles. We've got an M8 GPS back there. Oh, no, that's not the M8, Justin. That is the BN220. Looks very similar to the M8. I'll try to get closer to that. BN220 GPS. Now, this GPS is a very good GPS, and I'm not totally sure that I have the port set up correctly, so that's probably why it wasn't loading. Or I might have GPS had been turned off in beta flight. You have to turn on GPS in beta flight. The good thing is that with it turned off, you can just arm the quad once the accelerometer sits for about 5 seconds. You should be good to go once it balances out. You want to have the quad flat when you put it on, when you plug it in and put it on the ground, so it can fly right. Otherwise, it might fly to one side. But we have replaceable arms on here as well, which I think is super cool. 3 bolts on the bottom of each 1404 Photon motor. And let me show you, these are 3000 kV. 2 bolts on top of each prop. And these are decent motors. 3000 kV is not super high. I kind of wish they were about, say, maybe a little, somewhere in the 2000s, I think would give us a little longer flight time. And for what this is, to me, this is kind of a send it rig with a little extra power with this hex configuration. And this will be a faster long range rig than something like your standard quad, I believe. Because these do fly really fast. They have a lot of momentum. They're really nice. And these are, I believe these are a 2038 Gem fan props. And these probably wouldn't be my favorite prop of choice for any quad right now or Hexa. You have a TPU mount up front, it looks like, as well, for that Runcam Split Nano 3. And I like where they have the Immortal T. That comes with that mount right there. So that's also TPU. So this, yeah, again, this is like a larger, bigger brother, but still under 250 grams, like that little Firefly from Flywoo that we reviewed last week. If you guys want to go back and check that out, that's a pretty cool review. And that one fits in the palm of my hand. It's super tiny. Now the ESCs on here are, it says at 2 to 4S LiPo input, 15 amp burst to 20. So you'll be fine running 4S on here. I think that if you wanted to fly this on 3S, you absolutely could. You could put a 3S battery on this baby and fly it as a beginner on 3S. If this was like your second drone after something like a 3-inch, I think this would be proper. And to check the way that the props go on this guy, you start like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe, in beta flight. So beta flight configuration tab is where you're going to see which motor turns which direction. So it's very odd. You have to go through each one and make sure that they're absolutely right in the direction, or you're going to have this thing flip over on its head when you first take off. So be super careful when you're putting your props on a hex. It's always confusing, it seems. And I'm gonna try to put some better props down below. I think if you put better props on this, you won't have that little bit of jitter in here. I think these props are absolutely what we're causing that little extra jitter. I feel like I've flown this flight controller before and it did good on a quadcopter. And this is their own flight controller. This is Skyzone's own flight controller. So these are the props that we see on the website. And I think these are the ones that we should be running on this Hexacopter. I will try to find those. I believe those are HQs. You can see they have a sort of thinner cord to them. And this thinner cord is gonna be a smoother performance on this Hexacopter for you versus this prop is a really wide cord. And this is an old design. This prop, it might even be like 2.5 years old. This is an old donkey cart prop. This is not cool. So I basically would take these off and throw them away. This prop right here is gonna clean up everything. So they started to make a lot of these micro-sized props, a lot thinner cord and smooth taper on the end for you guys, so that it just creates like a really nice, smooth flying characteristic. A lot of times on a tune, on a hex or a quad, starting out, it's all about the prop first. Prop and power combo. If you have a nice prop on there, you should get a nice smooth flying quad with stock Betaflight PIDs. If it's kind of giving you the jitters and stuff, you definitely want to check out your prop. But you learn about props as you go on in this hobby. You learn more and more about what's a good prop and what's a bad prop. For 5-inch, Cyclones are kind of a big favorite, and those typically have a nice narrow cord with a tapered tip. And some of the race guys like those as well. They're pretty fast. But that about ends up this review, guys, on the Dragonfly. I think it's cool. I think it could definitely use a taller antenna back here and some different props. And I think if you're gonna buy this one, you'll be okay just switching out the props and later on kind of extending out this Rush Cherry antenna just a little taller here. Get a little longer cable to snap onto that UFL connector right there. That's on the back of that. This just pops on and off. You put a new one on there, extend that out, and I think you'll have a pretty nice flying hex. And if you want to do it under 250G with HD, you can do that too. So thanks again for watching my channel, guys. Stay humble and kind out there to each other, and be respectful on the internet. And please do make some comments below. I love making these videos for you, and please do subscribe on the channel. I got more fun stuff coming up and some awesome giveaways. I'm gonna be giving away this right here. So this will go out to some subscriber on my channel. So please do subscribe and get a chance at winning one of these on the channel coming up this week. Giveaway video. It's giveaway time, guys. I'm gonna also give away some drones. I'm Justin Davis, guys. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.